No.
Just public comment.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. 110.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Again,
Recording in
apologies
progress.
for the late start as we were just coming out of another meeting. Let's call to order the Newton School Committee regularly scheduled meeting for October 6th. We are going to start tonight, as we do every night, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight, we have Victor Vico Zakak from Mason Rice to lead us in the pledge. There's no obligation to participate. For all those who are willing and able, please rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Vico. You're welcome to share or not share.
You're
Okay.
okay. All right. Thanks for being here.
All right. Thank you.
Nice job.
Bye, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. All right, let's move to our public comment this evening. We have one person in the room who would like to make a public comment. That is Enrique Rosero. We have no one virtually, correct, Lisa? No one virtually. You have 3 minutes to make a public comment. After 2.5 minutes, Member Prenner will give you the 30-second warning. If you could just-
Thank you. Good evening. I want to address the mailer I received promoting the Lareski slate with the repetitive yet often meaningless label of Kids First. For years, we have heard politicians declare, the schools are my top priority, but chronic underfunding and yearly crises suggest otherwise. This school committee, with some members campaigning under the Kids First slogan, has sometimes fallen short of that promise. We've seen it in the stubborn opposition to kindergarten aids, the preeminence of taxpayers' burden concerns over urgent, needed facilities that will truly support student learning, and even the slow response to harassment issues. Other examples include prioritizing parental objections over educator advice on banning student devices, and of course, failing to support the necessary override, leading to teachers being on the chopping block. This does not align with truly putting our kids first. When a mayoral candidate also adopts this label and spends several thousands of dollars to push his slate while remaining either silent or non-committal on appropriate school funding, the phrase rings like demagoguery. The reality is Kids First is often co-opted by those focused only on their own child's need or groups with narrow anti-teachers, anti-DEI agendas. It is time to make Kids First an actionable commitment, not just a convenient campaign tagline, but by an emerging dark money pack. Our students deserve more than rhetoric. They deserve resources, real support, and meaningful collaborations among adults with the necessary expertise to get the job done on their behalf. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That concludes our public comment session for this evening, and we will move to our consent agenda. We have 2 items. We have our meeting minutes from September 24th, and we have a memo on some donation requests. Is there anything a member would like to pull from the consent agenda for further discussion? Okay, seeing nothing, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, moved by Emily. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by On Ping. No further discussion. Let's take a vote on that. Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2 is yes, Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes, and thank you to Tui Sutherland. Huge donation.
Ward 6,
Yeah.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 8 is vacant, and Mayor Fuller is absent. So Lisa, that passes 7-1 absent. Okay, let's move on to our superintendent's update.
As promised, you get a double dose this week because you got no dose last week. So first up, I just want to celebrate the Human Resources Department and leadership of Assistant Superintendent Giovanni Santa for arranging Boston College internships. So Newton Public Schools will now be a federal work study site for Boston College students. And that's the first time that this has ever happened. This is different from our working relationship with Boston College around student teachers. So I just want to let you know that this is a new piece. Second, you're going to hear tonight from our social emotional learning staff leadership. Casey No Miller, the assistant superintendent for student services, could not be here tonight. Her daughter is in a show, and we encourage our people to support their own young people in their life achievements. So good thing is we distribute leadership around here, and the next string is in tonight. So we'll hear from Jesse Krodick and Sophia Brion Mizels. I mention that because Wayfinder assessment tools is something that is the subject of this memo, where we have obtained this new assessment suite, which addresses some of our portrait of a learner competencies, college and career standards, and our social emotional learning goals. You'll hear a little bit about how this tool is being used within the system. And there is a summary here for the public to hear about. We're excited to see how this resource can be used in things like guidance seminars, advisory, extension blocks, community blocks, and daily interventions and supports with students. I'd like to congratulate the Oak Hill School for becoming a unified champion school again. So this is not a new honor for the Oak Hill folks, but they've earned the unified champion school distinction again this year, and you can read about that distinction. But it does mean that unified sports are in full throttle at that school, and that the state of Massachusetts has seen that they do so with distinction. So we're really proud. Just some fun facts about English language learner registration. All the screening of our students is wrapping up. We screened 702 students this year, 175 new English language learners new to Newton. Interesting note, we're seeing a lot more less common languages in our screen students. We've listed all of them: Lao, Somali, Persian, Urdu, Hakka, Bosnian, Ibu, Burmese, Swedish, Malayalam, Lore, Galician, Khmer, Finnish, Bukian, Czech, Kashmiri. Just wanted you to get a flavor of sort of the emerging and continued diversity and strength of our district. Thrive 25, which is our full day, second annual of professional learning for all of our staff, is in play. All of our presenters were notified today, 3,500 employees, 350 sessions, and that's on November 4th. That's not a day of school for kids, but it's a great day of learning for all of our staff, and we're really looking forward to it. Remember, this event was funded by the free cash allocations from last spring's budget season. Spoiler alert, we'll have to figure out how to fund that moving forward. The first citywide early release day occurred this week for the system. And I listed for you the agenda of all of the curriculum work that is to be done there. And it was the first day of work in workshops with many of our new directors for the curriculum department. There was a job action from the NTA for this agenda, and we are negotiating to ensure that that action does not occur again. But we did lose about a month's worth of time. I just need you to know in terms of the rollout of the math curriculum pilot and also the English language learner curriculum review. You heard in the donation requests today about people donating books about veterans to the school system. We've been putting these books out to all the elementary classrooms, and we are looking for volunteer veterans to read a story to students in the month of November in honor of those who served. We do have an update that's very important for the community to know about early literacy reports and screenings. If you may recall that our CPAC group worried out loud for us last spring that with the change from iReady to Star Reading, that there might be students lost in the mix in terms of students identified as possibly needing supports for dyslexia. I wanted to let you know that the new system of flagging based on STAR guidance and our DIBELS assessment has been checked by the Department of Education. Our leaders interacted with DESE to ensure that we were in compliance with the dyslexia screening scenario with this new combination of assessments. The major difference from our screenings last year is that the STAR logic flags more people who might potentially be weak in the area of reading and need additional services. So this means that the list is about 132 students more than last year. And now the sites will go through, all of our school sites will go through checking and double checking and testing and assessing to see who those students are who really are at risk. I just wanted you to be aware of the larger number, because maybe that would seem difficult to you. I actually think it's more protective of the students, and it actually guards against what the CPAC worried about in terms of us missing kids who may have been screened in one tool and not in another. I think we're actually capturing a larger group to determine how serious the need is for universal curriculum and interventions there. This large number, though, of 532 students supports the actions that we are continuing to make in the area of curriculum and practice. You cannot intervene your way out of a tier 1 curriculum problem. If we do not have a solid foundation for curriculum, many more students will continue to be flagged who may not necessarily have disabilities. So we have been purchasing and providing professional development for learners, general educators in grades 1 and 2 in the phonics curriculum that is more aggressive in targeting and meeting the needs of those identified weaknesses. We've procured a literacy intervention program for all students who are identified. That is a phonics adaptive practice application to use during the day during small group literacy time. And we have infused standards-aligned resources to all of our educators into small group literacy block time in the early elementary, and we restructured academic support positions to all have highly skilled literacy specialists in our reorganization of early intervention last spring. These are huge steps in our commitment to the science of reading, and we are hopeful that their impact will be seen during the middle of the year, where we will be remediating those weaknesses found this fall. FA Day was in the news, and if you click the link here, you'll see a news story about their use of the Yonder pouches and its success. I do want to say thank you so much, FA Day School, for being the tip of the spear for our middle schools, but I also want to give a shout out to the Central High School staff here in this building who've been using Yonder patch for many years in our alternative high school here. They have been innovators, and they didn't get their own news story, so I wanted to make sure they got recognized. Some of our middle school families, as always, I was a middle school teacher and principal, and there's always such immense worry about the transition from middle school to high school. And I really just want to say again, out loud on TV, that middle school gets a bum rap. I think it's a tremendous time, one of the largest time of learning and development for young people, second only to the first year of life. That said, we heard a lot of feedback over the last couple of years about transitions from elementary to middle and middle to high school. So we've been focusing on what that looks like and asking our students about it. So I gave you just a sample from Bigelow Middle School of how students are being polled during advisory or in small group supports. Minute meetings happened with school counselors across the middle schools so that every child got a touch in with their counselors. And we asked them questions about like, so how's it going? And, you know, what was difficult? What's been positive? And I hope you can see this better online, but there's a color-coded chart of people mostly saying that the transition was great, awesome, or couldn't be better, with only 22% saying it was good, and 7% okay, 4% so-so, and 1% not good. So it's just one data capture, but I think it's important at this time to keep pumping the joy of middle school and not necessarily that it's always a tough transition. Finally, a few more things to go. I wanted to share that we in Newton have really been trying to put ourselves at the cutting edge of research. a Boston College doctoral student group is going to study our district's data use and MTSS development as part of their doctoral research, and they will present that back to us. Renaissance Learning will be studying how staff use data to inform their use of instructional tools and support for teacher practice, and they will be publishing that study at a national level. Duquesne University will be studying mindfulness, breathing techniques in adolescents in terms of stress reduction. The details of the study are listed here. We had a very interesting meeting this summer with this research team, and this will be a fairly large study of students aged 15 to 18 and their capacity to use mindfulness techniques to reduce stress and improve mental health and perception. I've taken on a few interns this year. Two of them are from the Influence 100 program. Henry Turner and Tammy Strauss are both training in that program for aspiring superintendents. And a math expert from the California coast, who currently lives in DC, Tamira Walker, will be joining us as this year's Harvard Doctoral Leadership Program intern. We will also have returning for us for a second year, Farah Asaraji, also in the Harvard Doctoral Leadership Program, a seasoned central office member who has helped us with human resources work and will be focusing on finance and special education this year. I included the fall athletic update for the Dalton division, which our two high schools are in relative to athletics. I just figured this year we might like a smattering of little updates from across the smorgasbord of things happening in the schools. And there were two follow-up items finally from last school committee meeting. Rajiv asked about the Williams School playground update and the Brown parking lot. Someone asked about the Brown parking lot update. Both are there in for your, to answer the question. Just want to be clear that the Williams School playground update is the same one that we gave you last spring. So there's not been a tremendous amount of movement there, but it does detail all the upgrades to accessibility that were made, and that the Brown School parking lot, this is behind the school, has had work done on it since last year using crushed rock to address all the potholes and extend a parking area, but the area was not paved as was originally discussed with us in the initial conception. With the recent decision by the city sustainability team to not install a solar canopy in the back area, Public Works is now evaluating a more permanent paving of that area. So that is my superintendent's update.
Okay, thank you for your double dose there.
It was worth it.
Questions, comments from the members on the superintendent update? Alicia?
Dr. Nolan, can you expand on the job action and what the impact of that was and why we are a month behind in due deliverables?
So it appears that the manner of execution of the middle school professional development days that has been in place since 2020 was not formalized in a formal memorandum of understanding. It was done over several years in this exact way. So we were not aware that there was a concern about, I was not aware that there was a concern about that schedule. There had been a schedule developed by former Vice President of the NTA, Chris Walsh, that had been done in tandem with Unit B members. We ran that same schedule. So at this time, we are back in negotiations about what to do next because we can't keep having those days run and be interrupted in that way. So the issue at hand is that all of our middle schools let out at different times. So in order to have a middle school citywide meeting, there is a 40-minute window between the time when the first school is released and the last school is released. So there's a 40-minute window of time in which it has been addressed in the past that that principal and the other principals gives staff time back in that week in other PLC time so that they can attend the citywide meeting. This hasn't apparently been codified in a way that can last, and so staff were directed to leave at the time. So in staggered waves, they left, and the directors could not achieve their goals.
And is there a remedy you foresee? Is there a way to reset? I know that we only have so many early release days and we certainly can't alter that schedule per se at this late point, but is there a remedy to get that time back?
I hope so. We have regular labor management meetings and it didn't come up at our last one. And so that's why it was surprising. But I'm confident that we'll be able to work it out to accelerate that program.
Sorry, one final logistical question. When did you find out that this was a problem?
So it
If
was the
been
day,
known since 2020?
yeah, it was the day before the event, the day before the professional development. So we just simply didn't have time to turn it around before then.
Okay, Rajiv and then Tamika.
Actually, to continue from where Alicia was, the early literacy screenings. So thank you for going through in detail how we're tackling them, why we see a higher number of students being identified for additional evaluation and support. So that's great to hear. But in tandem with the job action, what concerns me is this professional development related to having our educators work with the students who were at least initially identified. Do we know when we're planning to have that professional development, and do we have any idea if there's another job action coming? Because obviously that would be pretty detrimental for these students.
So this did not affect elementary students at all. And so this is
I know this
relative
one
to,
was middle school,
right.
but I'm saying, do we have another one coming up?
We do. There are only 3 a year that are citywide meetings. So we had some discussions today about how we can put a proposal forward to resolve this successfully and regain some time.
Okay, great. And then the kind of a more open question, and Dr. Knoll, not necessarily addressed to you, but to my colleagues here, regarding the Williams Playground. This has now been a citywide challenge for many months, years, actually. And I've spoken with parents, I've spoken with some educators, I have spoken with community members, and there seems to be just absolutely no path forward, short of litigation, which I think no one wants to have surface. But what I would ask is not necessarily in this forum, but if you have any ideas for moving to resolution on it and getting to a stage where the students in the special program at Williams are actually able to access the playground, I would love to hear from you, because it is absolutely heartbreaking to hear the stories from the families. And we're now many months removed from when Williams families came and spoke at public comment and asked for support. And I feel personally that I haven't been able to do very much. So completely open to your suggestions and thoughts. Like I said, this leaves us at some risk for litigation, and I don't think we want to be there. I don't think the families want to be there, but it's a tough situation. So.
Thanks, Rajiv. Tamika?
So I'll pick up that thread that Rajiv just laid out for us, because I agree 100%. I think it's egregious, the situation that is presently existing for the students in that program. And I don't think the solutions that have been put forward have moved the needle one iota. That being said, there was last year some discussion about moving the program to a more suitable school location. And I'd be curious to have that conversation to hear where the status of that analysis lies now. Because it did seem as though that would be a pretty seamless, at least at the 1,000-yard view, seamless solution to this particular problem. So I just want to put that out there. My questions for you, Anna, or Superintendent Newland, what exactly is a federal work study designation? What does that mean in practical terms?
It means that we will receive the assistance of these individuals for 1/3 of the price that we would normally pay. So it's backed by federal work study dollars.
Ah, cool. News. I love that.
Yeah.
And then 2 somewhat follow-ups. One, probably Casey No Miller is probably the one best suited to respond, but and I apologize since she's not here. But the STAR literacy screening update was really, really good to have all of this information for us. And I'm wondering, it's resurfaced something I've been thinking about. What type of screening tools do we have for students who are later in the system? Thinking about students who either A, didn't have access to these screening tools because they were,
Mhm.
you know, past the point in their education where we had them implemented. And then two, for new students coming in, how do we screen those students? And I
Yeah.
totally fair if you need to follow up.
No,
on that.
I can answer these questions. So, and Katie, keep me real if I miss something. But so when a student comes in the early grades, they can be screened at any time. So STAR benchmark assessments, remember, happen 3 times a year, every year, all the way up to grade 9 now. So we have those assessments, and that sponsorship from Renaissance Learning for us as an innovation district, which is really helping us to be able to have all those tools. We also have our DIBELS assessment, which is something that we can cross-check with STAR reading. If a student comes in later, we can always do more curriculum-based measures and benchmark screeners with STAR Math or STAR Reading at any time. So they'll do the big benchmarks, but there are also smaller assessments that can happen. One of the difficulties for our system is that we don't actually have any other common assessments in literacy and math after grade 5. So that is in our strategic plan in the roadmap for what we need to do. So we really feel urgency about getting those as another potential way to flag students who might be going through the curriculum and need assistance.
Okay, great.
Did you want to add anything else, Katie? Gets there? Okay.
And then the last one, a follow-up on the follow-up
Mhm.
about the Brown
Yep.
paving. I understand that the paving has happened or not paving, that the crushed rock.
Yeah.
So what happens to the $300,000 that were allocated to this project if that is the interim solution or the final solution? Do those funds revert back to free cash, or are they then utilized in some other way? What?
So, I mean, the way this typically works is those funds will sit there and they can be used for a like purpose under the regulation that governs that particular account number. So some other paving thing could come up and we could use it for that. Or there are times when we have had to reassign line items, but we would come to you and let you know if that was the case.
Thank you.
I also agree with Rajiv and Tamika in terms of trying to get additional playground equipment to Williams. I do want to answer the question about, there was discussion a while ago before Lincoln Elliott actually opened, whether or not we could move that program that's at Williams to Lincoln Elliott. And the Lincoln Elliott space was built specifically for Lincoln Elliott, and there are some additional smaller classrooms. And I'm looking at Stephanie because I know that there was definitely a more specific reason why it was not appropriate for that group, and not to put her on the spot in any way, shape, or form, but we can get that answer to you at the next meeting, I guess. That'd be good. Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks. Just one clarification, going back to the citywide professional development. I can't remember what the phrase you used was, folks were instructed to leave, or was that Unit B folks? How, like, exactly what happened?
I don't receive the union publications, but my understanding is that folks were advised to follow the contract and to walk out of the meeting.
Okay, so it was just meeting over, folks walked out.
Correct.
Okay. I just
They
wanted to make
walked
sure.
out mid-presentation.
Understood. Okay. Other questions for Dr. Nolan? Okay, thank you. Let's go to our agenda items for this evening. We will start with the YRBS Social Emotional Learning Update.
Okay, so joining Jesse Krodick and Sophia Brion-Mizels is Katie Hogue. our Chief of Data and Research. There's two parts to this evening. There's the presentation regarding mental health and YRBS, and then there is a lengthy report created by Dr. Hoag. Just as a reminder to the committee, we used to contract an outside vendor in order to do this report. And now our tools and capacity are such that Dr. Hoag is able to do that report. So we also have prior year's data, which is all memorialized in school committee minutes and all of that, but we also have the data sets. And then I just want to be sure that Dr. Hoag highlights what, before she talks about the report, just the amount of students taking the high school exam, because that was a difference this year that we saw from other times. The district response rate from the high schoolers was different. So I just want to say that to you. So as we look at parallel data sets, you know, this is a wrinkle in the fabric, I'll just say. So I don't know if you just want to introduce yourselves and talk about your roles, and I don't know who's going first or second. You're all braided together. Okay, great. I don't know if that TV is working. Stephen, one of the TVs is out. Just an FYI. I think we can still get started because you can see from here. Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah, hi. It's nice to see you all. I'm Jesse Krodick. I'm the coordinator of social emotional learning and social work pre-K to 5.
Good evening. I'm Sophia Brianna Meisels. I'm the coordinator of social work and social emotional learning for secondary.
And I'm Katie Hoag. I'm the chief of data and research. Do you want to start? For me to just
Great. Yeah, so as Katie said, we're sort of intertwined here. We're going to talk a little bit about, give a mental health SEL update that's going to briefly examine what our current state is and where we hope to grow. Go ahead, please. So just very quickly, we felt like it was important to differentiate between what social emotional learning is and what mental health is. We find that folks often conflate the two. So very briefly, social emotional learning are a set of skills within competencies within a broader framework that we explicitly teach as we do math or literacy. Mental health is the constellation of one's emotional, social, and psychological wellness. And while certainly social emotional learning skills act as protective factors with regards to one's mental health, they're two different things. So we want to make sure that point is made as we walk through this.
All right. So as we mentioned before, we've kind of combined our presentations here to be more efficient. So I am not going to talk through every piece that is in the YRBS report. We're going to talk about some selected areas tonight, but if you have specific questions after, I'm happy to answer them. This sounds a little like echoey.
It's okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So as Dr. Nolan mentioned, one of the important pieces to point out about this year's YRBS data, or last spring's YRBS data, is that we had a much lower response rate for high school students than we typically do. So about half of the responses had to be excluded from the analysis. There were technical issues that happened on the day of the administration, and the way that it was scheduled, we were not able to make that up. So there is one of the first pages here talks about the response rate, as well as the response rate broken out for particular student groups. Those are self-reported categories on the YRBS. It's a fully anonymous survey. So you may see percentages over 100 for particular groups. So I'm going to talk through some of the specific items on the YRBS that relate to the work that Jesse and Sophia are going to talk about afterwards. So the first one is around student stress levels. And I should just say, we administered this in middle and high school like we have for the past few years. So most of the items are going to show the responses broken out by middle and high. This graph is showing the percentage of students who reported that their life is somewhat or very stressful. So as Dr. Nolan mentioned, we have historical data for our own YRBS survey. So you can see the percentages of students responding that their life is somewhat or very stressful since 2012. The blue line is high school respondents and the orange line is middle school. So for middle school students, their stress levels have remained relatively constant over the administrations since 2012, with a little under half of the middle school population saying that their life is somewhat or very stressful. For high school students, while we're seeing a decline in the percentage of students saying that their life is somewhat or very stressful, we still have about 2/3 who are saying that this is true for them. The YRBS also asks about what students worry about the most. And like prior years, both middle and high school students worry the most about school-related issues, followed by appearance issues and social issues. Oops, today. The YRBS also asks some questions around student sadness. So this graph is showing the percentage of students who were feeling so sad or hopeless for 2 or more weeks in a row that they stopped doing their usual activities. So again, the blue line is high school, the orange is middle school. We saw an increase in the percentage of students saying that this was true for them post-pandemic. So you can see there's a jump in the line for both groups in the 2022 administration. We are seeing high school students returning to the pre-pandemic percentage. So 20% of high school students reported that this was true for them. Middle school students, it's still elevated from the pre-pandemic values, with 15% reporting that this was true. This experience is not consistent across student groups. So particular student groups reported higher levels of feeling, or a higher percentage reported feeling so sad and hopeless. Those groups were non-gender conforming students, LGBTQ+ students, students who identify as Black or African American, students who identify as other for race, students who identify as Hispanic or Latinx, and students with disabilities were all more like, or reported higher levels of this than their peers. The YRBS also asks a question around self-harm. So it asks if students have hurt or injured themselves on purpose in the past 12 months. Again, blue line in this graph is high school, orange is middle school. You can see 10% of high school students reported that they had done this in the past year, which is similar to pre-pandemic percentages. 13% of middle school students reported doing this, which is, again, it's an increase from pre-pandemic. The YRBS also asks a question about whether the students have considered attempting suicide. The graph for that is not here, but the percentage of students who responded yes to that question has returned to pre-pandemic levels at the high school level and remain consistent in middle school. And it's 8% of students in both levels said yes to that. And then the survey also asks if students have attempted suicide in the past year. The percentage of students who said yes to that has remained consistent at both levels at 2%. There are a variety of questions around bullying on the YRBS. The percentage of students who reported being bullied in school over the past 30 days has increased for high school students. So 16% of high school students said that had happened to them, and remains similar for middle school students to prior administrations, with 29% of middle school students saying this has happened to them. Again, the experience is not consistent across student groups. So some of the same student groups who responded differently to previous items reported higher levels of bullying than their peers. So transgender and non-gender conforming students, students who identify as LGBTQ+, and students with disabilities reported higher levels of bullying than their peers. The YRBS also asks what students did when they experienced bullying, if they experienced it in the past 30 days. Most students at both levels, or the highest percentage of students at both middle and high school, said they didn't do anything about it. And then the next highest response was talking about it with a friend. The YRBS also asks about electronic bullying. The percentage of students who have reported being bullied electronically has remained consistent, with 11% of high school students saying this has happened and 16% of students in middle school. And again, that experience is not consistent across student groups. So transgender and non-gender conforming students, students who are LGBTQ+, and students with disabilities reported higher levels of electronic bullying than their peers. So shifting to protective assets. So there are certain questions asked on the YRBS around some protective areas. This graph is looking or reporting the percentage of students saying that they have at least one adult that they can talk to about a problem in various areas. So the blue bar, again, is high school and orange is middle school. So over half of the students in both of the levels have at least one adult that they can talk to about a problem at school. So it's 65% for high school students and 59% for middle school students. And then higher percentages of students in both levels said that they have at least one adult outside of school or one family adult that they can speak to. So about 86 to 87% of students in both levels said there was somebody in those places that they could talk to. So I'm going to shift it back over to Jesse. Do you want me to?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
So thinking a little bit about where we are with regards to social emotional learning at the elementary level, Dr. Nolan briefly spoke about the Wayfinder curriculum, which we're quite pleased about, which we'll touch on momentarily. But where we need to get is a place where we have, and mind you, pre-K to 12, pre-K to 22, we need to find a place where we are using a consistent developmental social emotional learning curriculum for all of our students in order to not only encourage the integration of this learning throughout the day, but to explicitly teach the social emotional learning skills for our young people to be successful. As you're aware, over the years, we've done a lot of work at the elementary level, thinking about MTSS for social emotional learning and for mental health. I'm quite pleased with our tiered framework for intervention. What we need more of is consistency of practice at that tier 1 level, as I spoke about, and we need more information. Which I'm also going to speak about shortly with regards to how we're assessing social emotional learning skills in our students and how are we assessing mental health needs as well. Please.
So for middle school, I think Dr. Nolan also talked a lot about sort of the rep that middle school students get. And I think partly that is because we stop understanding that kids still need to play and practice to learn some of these skills. And so when we think about our ideal state for middle school, we're really thinking about integrated instruction, which is both concretely teaching some core developmental SEL skills, but then also finding ways for kids to practice it every day, because none of us increases our skill in anything without doing the thing. We can't just talk about the thing. We have to do it. And so for SEL in middle school, we're really focused on sort of 3 core competencies: executive functioning, helping students independently organize their tasks and their life, whether that's schoolwork or balancing school and outside, whatever it is, needing less of us adults to help them figure out how to organize themselves, developing empathy and perspective taking, which I think really speaks to some of the higher middle school numbers that we were seeing. In terms of the fact that I think that middle school students have a harder time sometimes understanding the impact on others of their behavior. That's a skill set and a developmental one that we need to teach and practice and learn. And then stopping and thinking, the practice of being able to slow our bodies down, particularly when we're feeling a really intense emotion or an intense disagreement, and be able to reflect on what are the consequences of different choices and what is the choice that I want to be able to make. And we believe that by teaching those 3 skills and then being able to set up situations where kids practice that in connection with adults who can help them when it's hard, that will really improve those core SEL skills. For high school, the developmental stage is a little bit different. So we're really looking to support, again, both concrete teaching and then practice of the combination of interdependence and identity. So thinking about, when do I ask for adult help, and how do I, as my parents used to say, roots and wings? Where do I have the roots when I'm stuck as a young adult, and where am I extending my own identity and individuation into the world? Resiliency building, as students get older, some of the failures feel bigger. And what does resilience look like as we grow as human beings? And reflection and problem solving. and interpersonal dynamics, which are really connected in terms of understanding our role within the context of a community or an ecosystem, and being able to navigate that ecosystem as adults who are representing both what is best for us and also what is best for the communities that we care about.
We're really pleased this year. We're going to be piloting a social emotional behavioral screener, something called the SABRS. It's the Social Academic Emotional Behavior Risk Survey. And this is an evidence-based tool that we're going to be piloting. Let's see, grades K through 9. Thank you. And this is a much data point. Again, my distinguishing between social emotional learning and mental health. We haven't had a quantitative tool to assess the mental health of our young people. So this is a real step in the right direction. I anticipate that most importantly, this is an assessment that's going to allow us to provide students with the help and support and caregivers that they need, as well as really help us identify what areas we need to really interject more supports for our students, whether that be Tier 1 practices or staffing. Wayfinder, again, really pleased to be piloting this. We're piloting at 2 elementary schools, all 4 of our middle schools and our 9th grades. We are hopeful that we will find ourselves in a place again where we have a tool that we can use, a curriculum tool that we can use for all of our students, so that there's a cohesive learning in all of our schools with regards to social emotional supports and competencies. There's formative assessments as well as summative assessments that we can use, again, to inform changes at Tier 1 and as a data point for tiered supports moving forward. So more on that as we roll it out. Please do.
Just one thing to add about Wayfinder that I really appreciated is that it has both the formative and summative assessments, but it also has both the curriculum of teaching these core skills and then really easily accessible and diverse activities to practice that last anywhere from 3 to 7 minutes. And so it really gives staff both the ability to teach and then this ability to play and practice with kids on a regular basis.
And just to be clear, I think one of the issues that we're working on currently is where does this live? Where do we have time for this right now in our elementary school day and our secondary school day? So again, more to come, but it's exciting for us for sure. And then, well, I think I already spoke to this slide, but the idea of any good teaching and any good learning, that we're going to be assessing student needs and utilizing this information as part of a broader data inquiry cycle to really be able to provide those tiered supports and further develop the tiered supports as indicated by these assessments.
And finally, Casey No Miller and I spent the year co-leading with Mike Zillis our mental health working group, which was an expected working group that came out of contract negotiations last time. This was a wonderful group. I looked forward to it every month. And the group came up with the mission statement that you see here, that really defining what it means to thrive in terms of social emotional learning and mental health, with an integrated fluid continuum of proactive and reactive tools, curriculum, interventions, and staff. These resources should be provided in a trust-centered environment to stabilize and support both students and staff. So I hope you see that the tools that we've put together here to start to pilot really came from the voices of our staff and this collaborative meeting that we had every month last year in order to fulfill our negotiation obligations, but really to fulfill our contract with kids and to make sure that we were doing what was best for them. It was also really nice that throughout the year, the strategic plan came forward with a core goal that also prioritized student well-being in our community stakeholder groups for the strategic plan. So felt like a really nice coming together of all the desires for the community. This group at that time, we we still have this year to continue this mental health working group, to develop budgetary recommendations to bring to you, the school committee or the future school committee. But there was a brainstorming, and I just say this is a brainstorming because we did not have a chance to cull it and curate it and bring it forward, but it is the update for you on what that group was discussing in terms of needs, in terms of what should a mental health team look like that could truly operationalize the curriculum and intervention and supports of that vision statement. And so you see some roles and some caseloads there. A real desire to increase clinical staff at both high schools so that general education students could receive mental health services. Casey Miller and I have been taking meetings with lots of outside vendors who can, like Riverside, provide additional supports to students. So many students who are not special education students or in special programs are needing that support now. And there just aren't a lot of vendors, and there just aren't a lot of spots. And so we're worried about that. The creation of a central middle school therapeutic day program that's parallel to complement the central high school here at the Ed Center is something that many schools across the Commonwealth are contending with, and we certainly are too. We need that in development. Supervision staff and clinical testing for the district came up in this group. District-wide mental health department leader of some sort, psychologists to do private school testing. I've presented to you at length on the number of private school testing pieces that our staff take away from time and service with Newton Public School students in order to achieve that expectation, and we must do it. But is there another way to not pull away from our Newton enrolled students? And then family education on social emotional learning, plus the interplay with academics. So that balance between, we have a lot of conversations here at the school committee level about, the rigor of our classes, which also has to be tempered with what does that mean for social emotional learning and health. And certainly there was much concern many years ago in this community with some student suicides that may have been due to pressures on students with their academics. So we're always toggling between those two expectations. And then, of course, I just read you all these languages that we're contending with in our multilingual learner population. We therefore need ELL-focused social workers who can understand through the Office of Family Engagement, work with families and from diverse cultural and linguistic backgrounds. So that concludes our presentation, unless anybody had any further things to say. All right, happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you. Why don't we open it up to members for questions, comments? Unping, go ahead.
Thanks. Thank you very much for all the data and a great introduction of the social emotional learning and mental health. This is a huge field. And certainly, I don't think we have time to talk any details. I have a couple of questions. First of all, if I recall correctly, for the participation of the YRBS, the risk behavior survey, the high school student participation rate is relatively low, about 35-ish, no more than 40. So overall, or each grade, of course, the high grade, the participation low, probably even 20-something. Middle school, I was very encouraged to see over 80%. That's very meaningful. So my number one question is, for those students who participate in the survey, especially at high school level, now about 30% of students, do you think those students are pretty normal or probably have a little bit risk behaviors? So because this will impact on the outcome of the survey, right? Because we might draw conclusion from those participant survey results, but we have to keep in mind this is about 1/3 of students participate. So if these cohort happen to be in more or less the risk behaviors, that numbers could skew the otherwise normal distribution, or whatever the terms we can use. So I'm curious, that's probably in the past 5 years, 10 years, Okay, if you guys recall, it's normal participation or it's just dropping down a little bit for high school level? I'm kind of concerned about that. Thanks.
So historically, we've had higher participation rates at the high school level. This year, there were technical issues on the day that the high schools took the YRBS. And the way that it was put into their schedule, they could not take it on another day. So I mean, if you look at it's on page 5, the participation rates, they're low across most student groups and grade levels, but they're all low. And so my hunch is that it's random who made it through the survey and who did not because of the technical issues. But we can't know that for sure.
So in that sense, could we say low percentage probably shouldn't skew too much of the final results? Because if some students just decide, I'm not going to do this, I don't know, how did that survey was conducted? I'm kind students sitting in the classroom, everybody say, hey, please do this. Someone just said, I'm not going to do this. Or
Yeah, it was administered during, I believe it was advisory. So yes, there certainly could be students who sit there and do not participate. But on the whole, the low participation rate was definitely from the technical issues because most of the responses that were excluded answered some items, but didn't make it through the whole survey. And so to be consistent with prior data cleaning procedures, which are described in the report, we removed any responses that did not make it through more than 50% of the items.
okay, do you have any ideas what could be a percentage of students who did not complete the survey and then was excluded from the survey?
So there were 1,476 responses that were excluded. Overall, 1,252 were marked as incomplete, meaning that they started and did not complete 50% of the items. So it's a pretty large number that were excluded. And again, we believe that's due to the technical issues that happened on the day of the administration.
And that was with the vendor, not the network.
Oh,
It was not I'm sorry, let me clarify that it was not our internet issues. There was a server issue with the survey platform that day.
okay, I'm glad you explained that. Otherwise, I might be thinking students did certain survey and then realize I'm not interested in doing this because too personal, too emotional. I just want to stop. But that would be very different. So this mostly you would say due to technical reasons.
Yeah,
rather
that's
than-
the reports we were getting from the high schools on the day that they were administering it. The middle schools had more flexibility to re-administer at a different time, which is why you see higher response rates at the middle school level.
Okay, thanks for that. I appreciate that because otherwise I felt below 50, especially around 20, 30. Okay, next question, Chris, that's
ahead.
fine?
Yep.
That's, okay. Next question, a little bit bigger, regarding the, and mentioned about the vision from the mental health working group. And I'm very happy to see, 4-time psychologist, 20-1 social worker, and 30-1 adjustment counselor, and all the vision. So this is still vision. What's the current status, if I can ask?
So it varies by school. We know that during our last contract negotiations, we added a social worker to every school, K-8. We already had social workers at our high schools. So this is aspirational right now. I mean, you know the barriers as well as I do to adding these additional FTEs to our roster of staffing and priorities. It's our hope that we can bring together the right supports over time. And that's why we have a long range plan and we would bring you those staggered costs as they emerge.
The reason I'm asked this question, once in a while, parents will approach me, said, my kids have some behaviors or some difficulties. I try not to get into the specific discussion. Mostly those parents speaking Chinese. they approach me, they did not feel confident or whatever reason or language barriers. And I said, normally, you know, if you're not quite sure, you can talk to school guidance counselor or high school, just guidance counselor. A middle school, could it be social worker or adjustment counselor or psychologist? But I'm not very sure. Every school has a psychologist. The parents could identify and meet that person. Probably some two schools share one psychologist. Is that possible?
No, everybody has a psychologist.
Every school.
Yes.
So, okay, that's important. Now, let me quickly share one story. Just happened last week. I think it speaks very directly to these kind of issues. A parent moved from another district, that's Quincy, I could say that, Quincy to Newton, because parent concerned about the child's low performance. And she heard, of course, many people, or most people would know that, you know, Newton is premier school district, and she moved here. Now, just finished last year, freshman, now in the sophomore year. And she told me that school put her son into a special learning program. And she was not quite sure what does it mean. And then she realized the kids in a group with other students who were struggling academically. So she felt this is not a good way to help my kid if other kids were struggling. And I just asked a few questions. I said, you know, if your kid has special needs on IEP? Said, probably yes. I said, what do you mean? Probably yes. IEP, that's a legal document. She said, okay, yeah, you know, from elementary school, looked like he had IEP. I said, what's the problem here? What kind of difficulties your kids experienced? Some teacher said he had ADHD. I said, sure, ADHD and other things. So I'm saying this, basically, this parent made quite efforts to talk to other people. Other people mentioned that you should talk to me. And now it's sophomore year. And I told the parent, this is very critical time, high school, because this kid already experienced difficulties. And she made one remark, which I took to heart. She said, in that district, my kid wanted to do more homework, and some kids laughed at him. Why are you working so hard? You're not cool. Okay, came to Newton, her kid heard other, you know, class fellow students said, well, your grade not good, you're not cool. Well, in a sense, that confirmed that probably Newton doing a little bit better than many districts, at least comparatively speaking. But I did give her parent earful. I said, you have to read IEP personally, understand what IEP talking about. Did you sign the document? Do you remember you signed the document? She said, I'm not quite sure. I said, that's not a good thing for you to say, you're not sure for all those years. So long story short, I realized like those kind of parents who most likely first generation immigrant families. And I doubt if they read, even you ask them to read IEP, I doubt if they could read and understand well for all those years. And now they're concerned, school put their kid into this special learning program. They even did not know why this is happening. And they did not know how to talk to school. They talked to other parents asked them to talk to me. It's already taking time. So now this is a high school, and I think it's a critical moment. So I hope our kind of framework here, psychologist, guidance counselor, social worker, now we are doing a lot of those surveys. Hopefully we can catch those students. And because otherwise, if we do not help them, probably sophomore year, by junior year, they will really have tremendous challenge if they're already academically challenged. Now, because the kid also felt socially he was not fitting in this school environment. And parents really get nervous now, spend all the money, resources to move to Newton. And so I just use this case. And I'm sure among the network I've been working, there are quite a few parents and students that, for cultural language reasons, and they do not feel comfortable to talk to school. And I just hope school staff will try to reach out. And that's exactly, I'm hoping that all these bullet points here, ELL folks, social workers, family education, SEL plus interplay with academics. These things speak directly to the parents like those groups. And I think there's a lot of work to do. And I've been saying this many times. My colleagues probably have heard me say many times at school committee, because these parents really need a lot of help. Of course, they need to go out. They need to reach out. That's also their responsibility. But public schools, staff really have to reach out. Otherwise, I think too much pain and struggles for them to go through. And I feel very bad myself. After the conversation, I was driving. I could not talk very softly. And after I finished, I almost lose a little bit my patience to say, you got to spend time. You should bring your husband to go to school, to talk to people. Then I realize whom they can talk to. So again, I take a little bit longer time. Chris, I appreciate that. But I just like to use this case to really highlight the challenges some parents have been going through. Thanks.
Thank you, Anping. Emily?
Hi, Katie. And friends. So a couple of things. Thank you for the explanation on why there was such a lower participation rate. That's the first thing I noticed when I read it, which I did read, actually, read the whole thing. You knew I did. YRBS is something that I've been tracking since 2004, for a long time, since we've been doing it. But I just want to say on Ping that even though for the most part, we had the lower participation rates, what's interesting to me is that there weren't that many crazy outliers in terms of what we have seen in the past. And so there's been consistency, even though we had a smaller subset. The place that changes, though, is for the subgroups. So in terms of just the broader numbers and the broader percentages, they're all in line for the most part for what we've seen. Again, there's nothing that's completely wackadoodle. But I'm just, usually I want to look at the subgroup data specifically, and I know that for this YRBS that we can't necessarily trust that it's actually reflecting the broader group that actually exists in the high schools who may not have been able to finish the survey. So I just wanted to say that, and I appreciate deeply all the data analysis that you do around this issue and how important it is for not only the school committee to be aware of what's going on in the middle schools and the high schools, but that the broader community is as well. One small thing that I thought was interesting was really hoping that the whole Yonder pouch thing would, at least in the middle schools, move the needle a little bit with the electronic bullying. And I'm sure it is in the classrooms, but there's other shenanigans going on when they get home. So, but it was just interesting. Thank you very much.
I think I will agree with you if the cohort is large enough, even though the percentage is low. In that sense, I think I have confidence. Thanks.
Tamika?
So Emily, excellent point about the Yonder pouches. I noticed the middle school data and had the same thought. Perhaps in outlier years, we will see some more traction there. Thank you all for your work around this and for being here tonight and really giving us a good snapshot of where we are as a district this year. I think there's tremendous value in the youth risk behavior surveys, in particular, for the student self-reporting component. It's important to have students being able to articulate in their own words, firsthand experience, what they experienced. I'm wondering, because it seems to me that it would be a good complement to some of the students' subjective data, what they're feeling, what they're experiencing, to have objective analysis presented in this as part of the report, or as a peer report to the report, which is the objective data could be, discrimination reporting, harassment and bullying data. Those are ones where it's not students saying, hey, this happened, in a sense. It's more that there's an objective process, which is identifying that these situations are occurring. And wouldn't that also be a good way for us to analyze the landscape year over year? I know that's data that we have and that we do collect. And so my point is, can we see it here as well? Because it helps to fill in the gaps, especially when there are things like technology issues that skew the numbers of students who can participate. So that's one point. That's not a question. That's just something I want to throw out there.
So year over year comparisons of certain areas you'd like to see.
Correct. And sort of included or not, it's tricky because it's not included here, but it's more complemented here. I don't know, we collect the data. I'm wondering if we can just see it and talk about it in the same breath as we're talking about these other factors.
Well, as we make our district scoreboard for you, so to speak, of all the metrics from the strategic plan, we're just thinking about design, like how would you like it to look? So, and can it be interactive, and so that you could click on years and you could see them all in one place?
Yep, sure.
That's what we're thinking.
That'd be great.
Okay.
And then about the Wayfinder screening pilots. I'm gonna bring you into my brain, which is scary. I don't necessarily recall so well anymore. But I do remember that last year, about a year and a half ago, we had some type of tactile tools that you brought to the school committee that we were flipping through that was measuring SEL, I believe. So my question is, what's happened with that work? Is this a complement to that work? Is this a way to kind of standardize that type of work, or is this something different?
I don't know what that is, so you're going to have to hit me.
Matt, it's a great question.
Yeah.
So,
Follow?
I follow. Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Oh, it's quite, if you could only see in my brain,
Okay,
believe
good.
me, we're in good company.
Awesome.
So we use Panorama. And you're absolutely right that I was here sharing Panorama data with you. There's a few reasons we decided to move away from Panorama, but the primary reason is that it is an SEL survey that's not attached to any curriculum. So it was a great first step, I think, as a way of measuring SEL competencies among our elementary age students. The big difference with Wayfinder is it has those formative and summative assessments tied to curriculum, which is just a much more effective tool.
Wait, but what was the playing around part?
We had those.
That was the digital,
don't
that was the digital learning for the elementary, and there were.
Oh, the cards.
And we.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's different.
Not related.
That's
to that.
different.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
That's different.
So,
Okay, you get me.
okay.
Maybe I didn't answer your question.
Yeah.
Can't even
But
say word.
That was from the instructional technology department, and that was on media literacy,
Yeah.
research literacy, and technology skills, which has some overlap in these areas.
I couldn't say for sure where I
Yeah,
was going
so
with that.
that was that.
Appreciate this.
Yep.
You're all helping.
Yep.
All right. So, and then the last question I had was about one that Anping touched on, which was which of the visioning, mental health working group, which of those initiatives we're able to move forward on? And it sounds like some, but you also, you already gave a really good response to Anping, so we don't need to go into it, but the plan is, it's coming.
Well, one of the reasons that Sophia is sitting here is that out of that group came the idea that we would put the Bright programming at both high schools and that we would need a coordinator of that program. So while we can still flush that program out even more, and we're going to assess how it's doing this year in its inception, that came from this group. So we implemented that piece and Sophia's role. So those are good things. But obviously increasing access for gen ed students across the board is really our goal. And that's a much bigger multi-year process.
Great. Thank you once again. Thank you.
Paul, go ahead.
Tamika, don't worry about the memory thing. It's just starting.
Oh, lovely.
Katie, a quick question for you. I see the numbers show about 16% of children reporting bullying in the previous 30 days. And I imagine if you were to conduct the survey at any given time during the year, you'd have a similar number about the previous 30 days. Is there any way to extrapolate from that to get a sense of how many kids experience longer lasting bullying than what they felt in the 30 days?
So the question is asked in that way about the past 30 days because that's how it was written a long time ago, and we want to have comparable data. We could add a question, certainly. We just wouldn't have historical data around something like around how long have you felt bullied. I'm trying to think if we have any comparable data to have a sense of that right now. The only other bullying data we have is what's like bullying complaints or reports or discipline events related to bullying. So I don't think we have a great metric right now to answer that question, but we do the YRBS every 2 years. So we won't do it this spring, but we will do it in spring of 27. And we certainly could add a question around, length of bullying or something to get at that question.
And for your colleagues, so I've been involved, and my family has been involved with youth athletics in the city for decades, dance programs, music programs, where you have teachers and coaches with extensive amount of time with the same children that we have in the schools. To what extent have you considered engaging that population of teachers and coaches so that they're familiar with what you're trying to accomplish and maybe can support some of the same social emotional skills and goals that you're working?
I guess I would say that one of the goals right now is for us to have a consistent program and process that we could even take to those groups. We're also doing an audit of our athletics program right now, just to kind of hear what's the experience like there. So I think we could head towards that. Many districts, in my former district, we used to do that. We'd have a whole coalition of anti-bullying, social emotional learning, and we would say, this is what we do. This is the lingo we use. We also should do it with parents. I mean, to On Ping's point, parents don't know always, my parents would have said like, suck it up, like, and no matter what happened, right? And instead, there's a whole range of ways that parents can be trained to understand their students' mental health and development. And so I think we're poised to do that, but we're nailing down our work right now.
I know in the certification programs that referees and coaches go through, there's kind of formulaic approaches that are taught in slideshows online, which seem to me to be fairly ineffectual. And it seems like these folks would have so much more relevant experience and examples and ideas that I think if we can get that way, it'd be good. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. One observation, a couple quick questions. I noted the data about feeling safe at home safe in school relative to feeling safe out of school. When those time series starts, 3 times as many kids felt unsafe out of school than in school, which, probably to me implies school was their safe place. In 2018, those numbers were about identical. And since 2018, more students feel less safe in school than out of school. And I think this is probably a bigger discussion for another day, just in terms of, I don't want to say it's anything but coincidental to attendance issues and the like, but I mean, I think there might be some meat in there. Just wanted to ask you quick about the Sabers and the Wayfinder, understanding these are, holy, is that the wrong time?
I know.
I moved my medicine timer back half an hour. Just so everyone's aware. Now I lost my train of thought. Oh, yes, sorry. So both pilots, correct? And is this to be reported out sort of the end of this year, next year? What's the time frame? And I'm not sure if this is one of the things you were thinking about, Tamika. I know there used to be like the daily at the middle school level. I think it was the daily like check-in.
Zone to grow.
Zone to grow, yes, with the little smiley face or whatever. That's no longer happening.
Go ahead.
Is my understanding?
That can happen through Wayfinder.
Okay.
So I think that is happening at a lot of the schools. It is a feature that schools can choose. It is not the only feature and it isn't mandated. So it offers schools some flexibility, but for sure there are schools who are continuing to use that and who through Wayfinder can sort of design it more specifically to the questions that they want to target for kids.
Okay. And then in terms of like the length of the pilot, this is through this year to be evaluated.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
This was underwritten by a private foundation who was excited about the framework for mental health that was being put forward for us, and they invested in the Wayfinder for us for a year. So if we like it, we have to fund it fully on.
Gotcha. Okay. Alicia, go ahead.
Kind of tags on to that Wayfinder pilot. So you were saying that it's difficult to find time in the day to do it. So how are you finding that for the pilots? About how much time do you need and who's teaching it? Is
Yeah,
it
it's-
classroom teachers or?
It's a really good question. So at the elementary level right now, really our time for this is morning meeting. And it's to be taught by classroom teachers. At the secondary level, it's a bit of a different setup.
I think the secondary, there's a different setup for both middle and high, which are really different systems. The middle school is primarily doing it through advisories and breaking up the curriculum because of the time. So I do think that to Jesse's point, there's a real question of how long it takes to get through that curriculum versus the way that we have that time broken up. And so staff are trialing it in advisory this year, and the high schools are trying it in WINS and advisory in some of their spaces specific to what works best for the high school system.
And what is the lift like for teachers is there professional development, like orienting themselves?
Yeah, we received some professional development over the summer. The feedback is really quite positive with regards to the amount of to the lift for classroom teachers. That it's really quite limited. It's really one of the appeals. It's really quite engaging for students and really accessible for teachers, which is part of the reason we went with it.
I just want to add that Jean Roundtree and Casey No Miller both led this initiative this summer. Students, we actually received a grant that staff were paid to come in and receive this training. Jean, how many staff were trained this summer? Yeah, I have 60 in my mind. So it was quite a deep number of teachers who we were able to do.
I just want to add that I think I was also concerned about the sort of lift on staff and checking in with the high schools specifically about Sabers. They were really excited about having the data, and both high schools really named the importance of wanting a mental health universal screener for so long and being excited to figure out how they can implement it, even if it is a bigger lift, because they feel like that data is going to be so supportive to their ability to serve students well.
It's like what a superintendent loves to hear, like, bring us this thing that's going to drill down deeper into student needs. So it's been really a pleasure to watch it unfold.
Thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Great job.
Here.
Thank you. You're staying next. Yep.
Katie gets to stay. I'll just ask members, I mean, we made it through one item of our agenda tonight, and why RBS and SEL always is a fairly meaty topic. We do have a lot to get through, so if we could please just remain on point as we move through the rest of the agenda. Thank you. Katie?
Okay, I'm still here. So I just have a brief state accountability update. So the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education released accountability and MCAS results at the end of September. I'll be back, I think, with Gina in the middle of November to talk through the MCAS data in detail for you. But there are a few things we wanted to bring up now. So just so everyone knows, the parent guardian reports were electronically posted to the Aspen Parent Portal on Friday in the late afternoon. So they are available there, and families received a Parent Square notification if their student had a report. And then families that need a hard copy will get it mailed home from the schools in the next week or two. We are very happy to say that we have 3 schools of recognition this year. So the state provides this title to about 60 to 65 schools every year. This year, 61 schools statewide were recognized as schools of recognition, which means they're being recognized for academic accomplishments and identified for high achievement, high growth, and for exceeding their accountability targets from the prior year. So Burr, Ward, and Williams all received this designation this year, which is great news. We have 2 schools that have been identified as requiring assistance or intervention from the state due to a low assessment participation rate. So we've had this happen in the past 3 years, where the participation rate for specific student groups at the school has fallen below 95%. So the federal law requires that 95% of all students and every student group are assessed on your state assessment each year. This year, South was identified for low participation rate for students with disabilities and for the English learners and former English learners student group. And Pierce was identified for the 2nd year in a row due to low participation rate for students with disabilities. We just want to make it clear this is not for achievement, this is for participation. And in both situations, these were students who were opted out of testing by their families or at the high school level, potentially the student. We also had Cabot classified as requiring assistance or intervention by the state this year due to low student group performance for students identified as low income from the state. This is a tricky student group because we're not actually supposed to know who students are who are identified as low income, but we are then assessed against that student group for state accountability. We're digging into this in more detail, and Dr. Nolan, I don't know if you want to add anything here, but one of the areas for this student group for accountability, it's looking at both achievement, growth, and attendance, and chronic absenteeism was a large part of this designation for Cabot for last year.
I don't know if there's something specific you want me to address, but I just want to mention the chronic absenteeism piece, just loud and proud. I noticed today on one of the Newton community Facebook pages that there's some feelings in the parent community about our auto attendance notices for families who notify the schools that they're taking their children out for an extended vacation. And I'm just going to say to families right now, we don't get to distinguish your vacation versus an absence. And the Department of Education does not allow us to excuse your absences, even if you do. So once a student hits a certain threshold, all absences are considered unexcused by the state. So our reason for notifying you, regardless of vacation, is God forbid you don't know that your child is out, or there's some snafu, or there's worry that the student is underperforming and we haven't notified you of our expectations for attendance. We are failing in the truancy education program required by us for all students in the Commonwealth. So I just want to be really clear that we haven't been doing those notifications appropriately over time, and we must do them, and we must notify folks. Now, if a student is medically incapacitated, we understand that's a different situation, and parents understand that's a different situation. But things like travel and absenteeism, even if it's just you know, being out with a cold several times a year, you are going to get a notice from us, and we need you to understand that we take your kids' attendance really seriously. This is one of those pieces that, whether it's an MCAS assessment or it's a key part of the curriculum, there is a direct correlation in our data sets to students who are chronically absent and underperforming status in ELA and mathematics. So we can show you over and over that that is an issue. So I just wanted to say that my suspicion is that this area may improve in that place, and certainly the principal at Cabot will take a look at any other factors that may be the case.
And then just the final point in this memo, I wanted to note that for all of our schools that participate in the MCAS assessments, all of them made at least substantial progress towards their targets that DESE set for 2025. Half of the schools made substantial progress towards their targets, and half met or exceeded their targets. So this is based on, you know, the percentage of points you're receiving for things like achievement, growth, absenteeism, growth for English learners, and additional components for the high schools. So that is positive news that we saw substantial or meeting or exceeding targets. And all schools were in the 70th percentile or higher when compared to similar schools across the state serving the same grade levels. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Dr.
There'll be more
Ho.
later.
Any questions or comments from members?
This is a little bit technical question. And you mentioned this, the Cabot school situation. Now, reading this language is a little bit difficult, I guess, for many people. Here, data for accountability. This is the second sentence of that paragraph. Data from accountability indicated for each student group are included from both 2024 and 2025 in the 2025 accountability calculations. So meaning they include 2 years data, weighing 2024 data at 40% and 2025 data at 60%. So I try to understand that for the low-income student group at Cabot, does that mean that for 2 years, this low-income group continued to have low-income performance?
It did, and they didn't tell us.
That's seem more serious than just an outlier. One year, a
Agreed.
couple of students just did not participate, which skew the data.
I'll just
So-
add some more context to that. So
Please.
the accountability system calculations are very detailed. There's a like 70-page document that describes how everything is calculated if you want to do a deep dive. So I won't go into that in detail right now because it would take a long time. But it's an interesting situation with Cabot because for there's a criterion referenced component that is calculated and a normative referenced component that is calculated. And the normative referenced component is the percentile rank for that group. So the low income group compared to all schools that had enough students in the low income group statewide in the same grade span. Cabot has not had enough students in this group in prior years to receive any kind of designation. You have to have at least 20 students for growth data to receive a score for any particular student group, and they did last year. It actually, the percentile, the normative reference actually uses 3 years of data, 23, 24, and 25. But we didn't go into that level of detail here for brevity. But in 23 and 24, they did not have enough students for growth, and so it was not calculated. But for 2025, they did. So the state only used the 2025 data for the percentile ranking. So it's
I mean, we feel
a
like there's
unique
no flag.
situation.
Yeah,
It feels
there's
like
no
here.
flag.
It
Mhm.
doesn't mean that we need to investigate this absolutely and analyze the data in more detail and look at this group of students, but it also feels sort of like a unique situation in that sense that they are just over 20 students in this group.
Mm-hmm.
There was no flag to us last year to look at it in that way.
right? Because there weren't enough students. So there
Okay,
was just
so last
no
year,
data reported at
They have
all.
chance to patch that school, but now with 2 years data, Department of Education could give
Well,
you
actually,
a-
just with enough students in that group
last year.
this year, in 2025. Sorry, yes, last spring, for spring of 2025, there were over 20 students in that student group. And again, as I mentioned, this is not data that we can share by individual student name, right? Like given privacy laws. So that makes this tricky as well.
But principal should know
Well,
exact those students. Yes, publicly you cannot share
that's right.
students. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. Thank you, Katie.
Great, thanks.
All right, we can move on to our next agenda item, which is a human resources update.
With me this evening is Assistant Superintendent Joanny Santa and DEI Director Kathy Lopes, who are presenting this evening.
And sorry about the TV, the part that's out for repairs.
I can advance it from this computer, right?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you all.
Just before you begin, Joanny, so there were some member questions. So Joanny has responded to some of those with additional graphs that you do not have in your packet within this presentation. So Lisa, we'll need to update the public materials. This happened like between 4 and 6 p.m. this evening. So we were tied up most of the day in an HR matter. So surprise, you're going to get some answers right now.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I also will admit that when I received the questions, I was not thinking about the fact that we have new members on the school committee, and therefore what you're used to seeing year after year since I started here I edited a little bit so that you didn't see the same thing over and over again, and also as we've evolved. And so I will put it out there that if you have other questions of what you would like to see in the report, I can absolutely disaggregate the data in that way so that we can get even more information than what you're used to getting. And I'd like to welcome Kathy Lopes up here with me. So the presentation covers key areas in the 24-25 school year, and also our HR goals and outcomes from 23-24, and our efforts related to recruitment, licensure support, pipeline development, retention, and staff movement and career ladder, which is what I've been asked to report out in the past couple of years. I wanted to point out that these 5 bullets are also part of our strategic priorities for 25-26. So everything we do in HR supports what the strategic goal is for the entire district. I also will not read all of these slides to you, but I also wanted to point out that we did have a reorganization in HR that included looking at how we can boost efficiency, how we can use technology to help us be more efficient when we're asked for data and asked for information that we need to produce fairly quickly. And also in our recruitment and our retainment in the way of a talent acquisition retention specialist who's full-time, that's just Nelly Bautista, and an HR data analyst and pipeline development specialist who's part-time, that's Jessica Tin. So strategic focus area 4 in human resources. Again, this is my way of showing you how this attaches and how it connects to the strategic plan. We rolled out ongoing professional development, a menu tied to the strategic plan and the objectives. You've seen this before, the licensure support training. What I wanted to add for all of you who are returning is what's being done to sustain the measures, because it's not a one and done, but we don't have to retrain the entire district and all of Unit B and hiring managers on this. So the sustainability measure was to create an on-demand course in Schoology for all our future educators and mentors that come on board. And same thing with the hiring manager training. Our sustainability measure is to support what's been done already and what training we've given in weekly office hours. And that's provided to all HR managers. I continued that again this year for 2 hours on Friday. We are available. establishing formal teacher leadership roles. This is an ongoing goal for us, and you'll see this really take hold when we expand what PLCs can look like. I know that the Office of Teaching and Learning and the Assistant Superintendents for Elementary and Secondary are also working on PLC groups and teacher groups, but from the HR realm, we're looking at how we are supporting individuals who are in Unit A and Unit B and C in participating in ways to either enter the career ladder by being teacher leaders in their PLCs and in their schools and in the groups that they're in. And our sustainability measure when it came to our DEI efforts, essentially that grant sunsetted. And we aren't able to provide the same kind of stipends that we were providing before, but we are looking to apply for additional funds that the Department of Education has recently made available. What we do have is quite enough books to purchase for any of the school teams that want to work on diversifying not only the school, but also what kind of supports are needed to disrupt microaggressions at work, in the workplace, and when injury happens, what do we do next? That comes straight from the data around why some districts are able to retain individuals more than others in terms of what their response is when these things happen. And so the idea of this book study, we used Humanity Over Comfort, was to grow exponentially. And the first year, it was a handful, about 8 individuals who participated, and I facilitated. The year after that, we had 32 participants among all of our schools. And so that in itself shows that folks are interested in learning how to bring this back to their building and how to work with each other to disrupt the type of harm that sometimes happens that make individuals want to leave. Bless you. Licensure and retention. I just wanted to show that we had 10 educators last year who submitted for reimbursement for MTEL due to our membership with the Massachusetts Partnership for Diversity in Education. We in the district do not reimburse MTEL unless there's some kind of agreement to do that if we want individuals to secure a particular license. But this partnership allows us to be able to use up to the 10 reimbursements that are offered. And I wanted to also show the positions of people who are working at either securing licensure for the current position that they have or for a position that they're going for. Our career growth strategies for Unit A going to Unit B included through our teacher diversification grant and the Massachusetts Partnership for Diversity in Education, 2 fellows in the 24-25 school year, 1 Unit A and 1 Unit B educator, were part of that fellowship to secure licensure as principals. And that was very helpful to us in terms of building a bench. And for the 24-25 school year, we have 2 new fellows from South High School and Brown Middle School who are part of the current cohort group, and both of them are Unit A educators. And our superintendent is also, I think she mentioned earlier, is mentoring doctoral students from Harvard and from Influence 100. So last year, she was the mentor for 1 fellow in year 1. That fellow's returning for year 2, and there's an additional fellow that's going to start year 1. And then for Influence 100, we had 1 fellow in year 1 and 2 in year 2, 1 of which graduated, which is fantastic. And then Influence 100 for this year, there were the 2 fellows that are left finishing their 2nd year. Don't know how you'd have time.
So I'll just touch a little bit on the work of establishing sustainable affinity spaces for our staff. So we have, for the last year, the 4th consecutive year, organized our affinity groups and formalized it with having staff coordinators that receive a stipend. Those were for the first 3 years offered by NSF grant and are now being sustained through the DEI budget. So we have 6 representatives that span the 3 grade levels and both sides of the district. We held two major events in December and also in June. We have a kind of new format this year that will increase the number of times that they are meeting in within grade level and still hold those two major events. They're well attended and they are often lots of feedback about how important it is to have that space for educators. We also established and formalized an LGBTQ plus group. There was an informal one that existed amongst staff, but the person who was leading that had retired and they lost a lot of connections. So we were able to create through a similar format of having staff coordinators, again, across all levels and both sides of the district. They did hold an event in June, and this year we identified coordinators again who will continue to get stipend and have a very parallel process to the staff of color affinity group. And again, I have lots of qualitative data that talks about how important those spaces are and how appreciated they are for staff as a part of a retention tool. Additionally, just along with trying to create opportunities for our staff of color and other staff to obtain or transition to leadership roles. So not only having them remain in the district, but what are the pathways to leadership roles? So we do provide opportunities for professional development around that. And anytime I can access some external partnerships that are either free or through funding, we support our educators having access. One of the things I've been most excited about is the Center for Black Educator Development holds a Black male educator convening every year. And for 2 years, we have sent Black male educators to this conference. The first year we were able to provide funding for our 6 Black male administrators in this entire district. That is the number of Black male administrators we have, 6. All 6 attended the conference. Last year, we were able to extend that and add an additional get additional funds to support some of our Black male MECO counselors. So there were a total of 9 male educators who attended last year. And this year we will continue on with that tradition and continue to expand it. This year I will also be adding a component of a mentorship component so that the administrators will be partnered with a staff or an educator and work on some goals to really support and assist those educators that are attending again towards a leadership path and opportunity here in the district. Okay. All right. The other piece, I'm really proud of this, and this was highlighted last year. So we began a partnership with LaSalle University several years ago that offered at 100% cost covered through some federal funding that LaSalle has received to offer opportunities for Unit C staff or paraprofessionals to obtain their master's in education with an emphasis on moderate disabilities. And we had 2 of our cohorts complete their coursework and graduate last May. So 11 paraprofessionals here of color in the Newton Public School District do have their master's in education and supporting their transition into Unit A positions here in the district. We still have 2 more cohorts in the pipeline at different phases, and we support them in doing their practicum here. It's a hybrid learning plan for them, and we're really excited about the additional members in this cohort. And as of yesterday, LaSalle reached out to see if we wanted to partner and look at a 5th cohort. So that is something that we're really proud of, and students are getting the support they need with the culturally responsive approach too for them to be successful in the program.
The next slide shows staffing data by race, ethnicity, and of student-facing staff. What's different in this table from previous years? Previous years, I was following essentially the groups that DESE collects data on, and I went back and looked at our data for 23-24, 24-25, and this school year based on student-facing staff. All student-facing staff. So what this also came from conversations with other hiring managers and Unit B folks around the fact that they've hired instrument teachers, coaches, other people that interact with our students and make part of their education. So if we're only looking at Unit A, B, and C, we miss out on the efforts not only to diversify our staff, but to also make sure that we have student-facing staff that mirror the demographics of our student. And so that's why I went back and I changed how I was reporting out the data by race, ethnicity to all student-facing staff. And I did go back several years so that we can see what the progression has been. Thanks for the feedback around adding the percentage increase or decrease if there was any, but there wasn't. I also want to point out in the next slide, I think I put it in. Yeah.
I just want to answer the question. So there was a question asked about, I don't know if this is the right slide. It is. So this number 655 staff, like Alicia asked, did we really hire 655 new staff? No, but that is that new capture of all of these people that actually serve students here. So I just want to be clear so that it doesn't go viral that we somehow hired 655 people in a year. So previously, DESE does not count a lot of the people that we actually employ, just the certified staff. So this is a holistic view of the entire.
It is. It also, from feedback from the school committee from last year's report, I think the other piece I wanted to show you is that your feedback also helped me look at it broadly. And so there's a multi-angled approach for us to diversify, recruit, and retain solid educators for our students and the coaches and instrument teachers and everyone else. And part of what our efforts have netted are more people identifying. So we updated our application explaining the need for that information and why it's important. And we saw the results of why more people were putting in the background. So it's not necessarily that we hired more individuals in any one of the categories that were just up there. It was also individuals that work here now that decided to identify, and also new hires that decided to identify. And the addition of all student-facing staff was important. And then the worksheet that I introduced last year, which if you click the hyperlink, it shows you how schools and hiring managers could really understand what the student demographic was so that they know what they're recruiting and what they're looking for in terms of parity with our student demographic. I think all of those things together really did help us get more people to identify their background, and also to recruit new staff. Okay, what did I do?
Just can't see it. Oh, sorry, your bar is.
Okay, thanks.
You just have to move that bar though.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, clicking too quickly. This is new hires and movement within the district. And last year I presented the information in this format for you for 24-25. I included that slide in there so that you'd have some history. And the next slide actually shows this school year for 25-26 in terms of movement. And this was a request as well. You wanted it broken down by unit.
So Alicia, in response to your question, the school committee asked for it in this format and not in another format. So we have the information that you wanted. I just want to get it in a so you had asked about churn and retention rates by unit or department. We just want to know more about what you want to know, and we'll churn it out.
I think it's just helpful to be able to answer questions like, did we increase or decrease our percentage of African-American teachers? So in the previous slide where we said
that. Yeah.
Well, we said it increased year over year, but as a percentage of the whole, is the proportion of our diverse teacher.
Yes, I understand what you're asking for, and I can.
Like that's like the central question, right? So
Okay.
That's it.
For sure. And then I added this slide, which shows student demographic data, district-wide, 25 to 26, the percentage of students by race. And the second column is the percentage of all staff, student-facing staff, and then broken down by teacher, para, and support. One of the things I didn't mention is that in our reorganization in HR, it also included looking at a data dashboard system that will help us get this information quickly. So when I was sitting in the back, I could crunch out this information. And the table below also has additional information. I don't expect you to process that right now and have questions for me, but I thought that if you could look at the next few slides and the information there, and if that prompts you to want it in a different format or more distilled, I am more than happy to get that for you. There was already a request to separate resignations from released, right, which makes perfect sense. And this is Unit D, co-ops, interns, substitute, and part-time retired staff that we have in our district. I think this is really important too, because it's part of what also helps us with our pipeline. We want to hold on to folks who co-op with us and do internships and our substitutes or start off part-time. And then the summary of all Unit A appointments by level, elementary, middle, and high, preschool, and the Ed Center.
Now, remember, it's not 81 new hires, it's 81 appointments. So there might have been resignations, retirements, all of those pieces. So I just want to make sure, because you get a bunch of questions about budget creep.
Yeah, we had about 35 Unit A retirements. I mean, that's a pretty substantial number. That's represented there in terms of we have to replace them. And we just remain steadfast in continuing to grow the department and grow the work around recruitment and retention. And it's a multi-year phased in, but we're getting stronger, better. And the new positions in terms of our talent acquisition and our HR data analyst position are effectively working with all of the HR generalists to make sure that we're using data in a real smart way so that we can be more efficient. Have any questions for me?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Paul, go ahead.
Confused about that chart, Bill.
Which chart?
The one that shows 2,623 student-facing FTEs. I may be totally off, but I thought we had about 2,000 employees.
We have 3,500 employees.
I think you think it's around 2,000 because we're consistently talking about certain units, right? Unit A and Unit C in particular, because they're the largest ones. But again, the student-facing staff that work with our students every day, whether it's the music instructor or the coach or the trainer at the high school.
And in these categories, if someone self-designates as part Asian, part Hispanic, they show up on both lines?
No, they show up as multiracial.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just ask one clarifying point on that?
Absolutely.
So a assistant coach is going to show up as a full-time employee,
They're going to show up as,
just as an example.
yes, as a number, not a fraction.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have 5 coaches on a team. That's
Yes.
5 FTE.
Their body, yep.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what,
Thank
yes.
you.
Thank you for the
Now that
question.
makes sense to me.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we don't have a fraction of a person and the person has an impact. That's another difference in terms of how we're presenting the data versus how DESE presents the data. So I can't tell you that it was 33.8
Yes.
retirements.
Yep. Totally understood.
Okay.
That was the clarification I needed. Thank you. Rajiv, go ahead.
So headcount, not FTEs.
Headcount, not FTEs.
Got it. So a couple of questions. First for Kathy. the affinity groups, are they system-wide or are they broken up? Like there's a group on the north side, south side, or elementary, middle?
So the way it's structured or the way the coordinator job description is designed is that so that there are two major events in the beginning of the year and the end of the year that are district-wide. So administrators are invited, custodians are invited, anyone in the district is invited. And then the coordinators are to have either bi-monthly, like grade level meetings. So there'll be an elementary one, a middle school, and a high school. We don't separate north or south, although we try to get a representative from each just to kind of get the communication and the community to both attend.
Okay. And so it sounds like you feel like that's sufficient coverage?
I mean, it would be great if we could have a coordinator every building. So having 1, 2 coordinators for elementary, it's still, I end up doing a lot of support in the communications because they don't always have the relationships and the access to every building. But when we have these meetings, they're introduced, they're collecting information so that people are more familiar with them and feel comfortable going to them. Yes. The issue with it would be the cost to offer, to compensate them for their time.
And also getting enough of you want a critical mass of educators within each group to really be able to work together.
Yeah.
Quick question on the LaSalle program, which bless you, which I think is fantastic. So when we send our educators there through the program, is there a commitment from them to continue with NPS for a
There's
certain
an
period of time?
expectation and understanding, although there is no legally bound contract that they stay. But I do believe most of the educators that do participate and that are interested are folks who want to stay. Folks want to stay here for the most part. So we're just trying to give them an opportunity to stay here.
So I can confirm that 11 finished the program and graduated. 10 of them still work for us. 1 moved away. And of the 10 that worked for us, we're reaching out to them and working with them to secure the licensure. Because one thing is to graduate, the other thing is to secure the licensure through the MTEL process. So we can identify them as licensed educators that can go into open positions. Most of them, or a good number of them, were also interviewed in the springtime for positions that we had open. So that's actually really good too. They've got to be ready to make that step, and we're here to help them do that as well.
That's an excellent pipeline.
Yes.
Johnny, question for you, and this is the last one, sorry, Elton. So qualitatively, I know you had started doing more exit interviews for people who were voluntarily leaving, and I understand some of them like were moving away for family reasons or other things, but do you have a sense of why we lose educators, other than family logistics and things like that?
It's a smattering of a lot of things, but for the most part, people are leaving because they find something closer to home. Commuting into the city is a challenge. That's one of the challenges. So if anyone can get the commuter rail to stop, that'd be great. And then the other reason could be licensure. We are finding that individuals are having a difficult time fulfilling the responsibility of being a licensed educator, even with all the support that we may give them. So we're looking at how we can support them early and with more MTEL prep programs that we can get them into and get them paid for. But for the most part, that is what I'm seeing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mika?
So, picking up on Rajiv's thread about the LaSalle Newton Scholars Program, I also think it's a fabulous pipeline. And I'm thrilled that we have these cohorts moving through. And it sounds like you've already articulated that as positions come available and as these educators in this cohort are ready, they are being
promoted
and on having the opportunity to
Mhm.
interview for those positions.
Mhm.
That's fantastic. I heard you earlier that is a cost neutral to NPS program, that LaSalle picks up through their
Percent,
federal grant.
100%.
So, and the other thing, there was a common thread through the presentation about some, you guys are looking for grants. You're out there, you're like digging for free things to promote educator pipeline and mentorship and the like. So looking ahead, in terms of funding, what are the things or the parts in the program, and also the sustainability piece that you had, the 60 books, where are you most nervous about being able to continue some of these initiatives? What are the ones that you're going to say, hey, school committee, we might need some support, or hey, NSF, we're going to need your help? What are those ones that you're like keeping your eye on right now?
Well, the funds for stipend positions, for the stipend work that individuals are doing. So, I mean, you can speak to this better than I can in terms of the affinity groups and other groups in the buildings. Many people have been doing this for years without getting a stipend, right? But it is their time. And so I think that we need to be really thoughtful about putting forward what the needs would be for us to continue to do that, and not just because that individual is passionate and committed to it, and so they're doing it without us paying for their time when other efforts in the district are stipend and are paid for. So if we could essentially have more stipend funds for the
So
collaborators.
I agree. It is the stipended positions that we have to look at that are, my budget is able to sustain some of these, but some of these have come in the past through NSF grants, DESE grants, some of the professional development we've been able to offer through COSPOC. We no longer have the funding to offer PD opportunities. I actually didn't list that here, but we did have a training last spring for Black male educators. We had about 20 men participate. It was a partnership with men at Fessenden. But that was about a $15,000 cost that we were able to cover last year. We would not be able to sustain this year. Similarly, with the timing of the DESE grant, some of the funding for some of the professional development for the male educator convening, we're trying to figure out and be creative about ways to sustain their attendance. But long term, we do need to figure out how we could offer these opportunities for professional development and affinity spaces that are specific to these particular groups that are not represented here in the community, nor have access to leadership or mentorship opportunities by those who look like them and reflect their journey.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I think it's good for the, as we're talking about strategic planning and the like, this is just yet one more component to keep aware of. Thank you.
Okay. Any other?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
so much.
All right, we will move on to next agenda item, school improvement plans.
You'll appreciate the brevity of this item, Chair, because I have certified that each of these elementary and secondary improvement plans are aligned to our strategic plan and have been vetted by Dr. Farag and Dr. Roundtree. They are here if you have questions, but they generally follow the following format. The elementary goal have 3 shared goals and 1 individual goal for that particular school. And the secondary plans have varied and more diverse individual goals, but 90-day action plans that Dr. Roundtree sort of oversees to ensure the deliverables of the strategic plan. So I don't know if there's anything else that they would like to add, but if you have questions, we believe that these are aligned with your expectations for the 5-year plan.
Okay, thank you. For the record, we have access to all those plans. They are linked in the memo. So I would say, let's feel free to follow up with the respective people on that.
It could be me. Then let me know.
Okay, let's move on. We have the school year calendar, and I believe Dr. Nolan, you're going to lead us through that?
Yes, so you have a memo from General Counsel and me about the change to the school year calendar. A year ago, or 2 years ago now, we negotiated with our NTA partners that we would be able to change our school calendar to start school before Labor Day. This is important when we have a late Labor Day. So we're about to come upon that time period, so I would like to formally request that you authorize me to share the attached calendar, which does contemplate a pre-Labor Day start with this calendar. Per our NTA contracts, upon your authorization, I will send it to Mike Zillis for feedback from the NTA. And we did this last year. The reason I'm asking for an authorization is this is the first time the district has had a pre-Labor Day start. And I just want it very clear and enshrined in policy that we made this movement for this. You don't need, according to General Counsel and outside counsel, we don't need a separate policy to dictate that we will do this. It's already enshrined in our contracts, and we can simply do the calendar as you do it each year. Last year, I had wonderful feedback from the NTA about revising our previous calendar. They may have other ideas here. I would like to hear those, but I would like the committee to consider this pre-Labor Day start so that we are able to complete the school year in a timely fashion within June. It should be noted that a trend that we are seeing each June is parents pulling their children out when we go later because they have paid for summer camps or travel or all of these pieces. So I think the sooner we can get school started, the better. I will also forecast that for working families looking for care for their children in late August and early September, the camps dry up, it's extra childcare costs. I think this calendar is more aligned with the needs of modern families. So I'll leave it at that, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And there is sample motion language at the end of this memo.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I should also say that this was reviewed by the policy subcommittee and is brought here with their recommendation, so they can also speak to it.
Okay, thank you. I know we had contemplated at one point the policy of picking the day if it falls after the 4th or 5th or something. Obviously, with it falling on the 7th, I think that would be safely within whatever policy we had contemplated at that point in time. But any thoughts, comments, questions from? Yep. Okay.
I jump in with one thought.
Well,
I've had, oh, I'm sorry.
Are you, sorry, before you? Okay.
Okay, sorry. I've had some parent chatter about this. And one of the points was the full week start. So the starting on a Monday, like you have in this calendar, is lovely. Again, for working families trying to find childcare and not having to start on a Wednesday. I know a lot of districts will be like, let's start on a Wednesday. And then you've got the mismatch for a full week of childcare. So I would just put that out there.
Thank you.
For any revisions that might come around.
Okay.
I move that we authorize the superintendent to submit the pre-Labor Day draft for the 26-27 school year calendar as the draft to be shared for feedback with the NTA and the community prior to the full review with the school committee.
I mean, just beautifully worded, Rajiv. Okay. Moved by Rajiv, second by Paul. Discussion on that motion? Tamika?
I just wanted to say that as a high school parent of 2 high school athletes, it's getting late. I appreciated the note that you included in the memo about the MIAA and how it governs the tryout time, which parents in this category where I am, you have to calendar for that. So
right.
I appreciate you putting that in here.
And it's
including it.
unaffected by this change.
Correct. That's it.
Okay, great. Okay. Seeing no further comments, we can take a vote on that motion. Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2 is yes. Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
No, Ward 8, and Mayor Fuller's absent, so that passes 7-1 absent. And again, this is for Dr. Nolan to start discussing this, just so everyone at home, for the one person who might be listening to us right now. This is to start that discussion. This is not approval of this as the official calendar for next year.
2 more rounds to visit it here.
Yes, and last year I do recall there was some good feedback, and we did change the I think when the holiday started or ended, which did make a lot of sense. So, okay, great. Let's move to the next item.
2.
Follow up from our September 8th, 2025 executive session. You want me to?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. So, we are to report out the results of that executive session. There was we started to breach this in our last meeting. There was several absent members. I did talk to council. You all got a memo saying that we do not need to publicly recreate these votes, at least as it relates to the motion that passed to open discussions with the Newton Teachers Association, which was at their request to have that discussion begin. Then there was also a discussion on non-aligned staff. Dr. Nolan had brought us several changes of 1, 2, 3, a handful of people to approve their salaries. And that one, we do still need to vote or recreate our vote.
Yes, because it has a budgetary implication that you need to do publicly.
And is no longer the subject of negotiation.
That's right.
Okay. Paul.
Chair, I move to accept the recommendations contained in the memo dated September 8th with regard to non-aligned staffing.
Okay. Moved by Paul. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Rajiv. Any discussion? Okay, with that, let's formally vote that in public session. Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2 is yes. Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6? Ward 7? No. Ward 8, Mayor Fuller's absent, so that is 7 and 1 absent. Lisa? Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's move on to the capital improvement plan. We have Stephanie and Liam. Always a pleasure. Sorry for the late hour.
It was going to be later than this, actually.
Oh, so we're doing great. Should we take like,
You
Come on,
ran
team.
Quickly through the list.
Don't jinx
do you want
it.
to take like a 15-minute recess?
No.
No.
Did you want to go? Or you want me to go? Let's try. All right. So at the last meeting, we presented a prioritized list of capital improvement projects that were requested with the CIP group. Then it goes back to the city for their internal group to shake up. And essentially what has come back to us is an updated CIP that's actually being presented or was already presented by the mayor tonight to the city council. You all have a big spreadsheet. Essentially, it's shaken out. They've taken off projects that are completed. Things have moved up because of that. The ones that we've requested that are new have not been added at this point, but they're documented in the NPS narrative for the CIP for the next round. And so we're still requesting a vote essentially to approve the CIP as presented from the city.
Okay. Thank you.
So I don't know if there are questions or.
This was in front of us at our last meeting, so any follow-up questions? Nope.
So I do just want to clarify,
Yes.
the spreadsheet that you received attached to this, today's memo is different than the spreadsheet that was attached to the previous one. That was the previous version, that was dated from April. That was the supplemental CIP. So this version is the update from that. Okay, just.
And again, just as a point of clarity, it's not like these items actually get fulfilled in their order as we roll through time. It's a bit of a living document, I guess, would be a fair way to say it.
Correct. And if you look out in the 5 years, there's only, I think, one item other than the projects that are currently under construction.
Yep.
That have funding
Okay.
at this point.
I'll make
Mika?
a motion.
Okay.
I move that we approve the FY 27 capital improvement plan covering the years FY 27 through FY 31.
Second?
Okay. Moved by Tamika, second by Emily. Further discussion on that motion.
Paul is exercising a lot of self-restraint here.
Always a task.
Okay. I seeing none. Let's have a vote on that motion. Ward 1?
Yes.
Word 2 is yes. Word 3?
Yes.
Word 4?
Yes.
Word 5?
Yes.
Word 6?
Tempted to abstain, but I'll vote yes.
Thanks, man.
Word 7?
Yes.
No Ward 8 and Mayor Fuller's absent, so that passes 7-1. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Final agenda item.
The moment you've been waiting for, my goals, which is your second read. I would like to ask for your approval of my goal documents here, and I'm happy to answer any questions. These are exactly the same as you've seen them the last 2 school committee meetings.
Okay. Comments or questions for Dr. Nolan on her goals? Okay, we're going to be efficient here at the end of the evening. All right. Would someone like to put forth a motion to approve the superintendent's goals?
Gladly make a motion to approve the superintendent's goals as outlined in the memo of September 8th.
Okay.
Second. If no more discussion.
Moved by Paul, second by Ping. Further discussion on that motion? Okay, yep.
I think they're excellent. I don't want the public to think the lack of discussion is any indication that these aren't thoughtful, comprehensive, timely, and really well thought through.
Very fair, and they have been in front of us for quite some time, so I think the discussion has been had. Okay, with that, let's take a vote. Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2, yes. Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 8 is vacant. Mayor Fuller is absent, so that passes 7-1 absent. And that concludes our agenda for this evening. We are adjourned. Strong finish there, folks.